Attention, please. You cannot run in the campsite. You can only ran.
What?
Please. So unfair.
Why?
Because it's past tense.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The AMP. This is the podcast for managers in the outdoor adventure industry where we discuss a range of topics to educate, inspire and entertain people along their professional journeys. My name is Pete Tubber and I'm the founder of an outdoor adventure company with various branches in Asia called Imagine. This week the topic is streamlining the organization of large-scale outdoor operations. So join us as we explore how to be super organized, efficient, safe and effective in the way that we manage large groups in the outdoors. To help us unpack this topic, our guest is Sawyer Chen, and he is the managing partner of Imagine China. We've been working together for a long time, and over the years we've also become great friends and enjoyed all kinds of outdoor sports together, from wakeboarding to horse riding in the mountains, and of course skiing. The reason I chose Sawyer today is because when it comes to this theme of organizing anything involving large groups in the outdoors, Sawyer has always been an absolute top-notch example of someone who is extremely effective, productive, safe, and somehow always makes it look easy at the same time, which we all know it most certainly is not. We've operated all kinds of large trips of many different types, and usually when I catch up with Sawyer after a trip and I ask him how everything went from his perspective, the answer is like, oh, it was all fine. And that is great. That's a great answer. As we all know, no news is good news. But today I thought it'd be really interesting to dive in a bit deeper and find out more behind the scenes of how he achieves that and how we can all achieve that as managers. So without further ado, welcome Sawyer. How are you doing?
Hello, Pete. Wow, that's a long introduction, but thank you very much.
So just for context, could you give one example of the type of large operations you've been handling recently?
Oh, sure. Recently, we completed 2 projects spanning 6 activity days in total with approximately 180 students and teachers.
And that's quite typical for a school trip, isn't it? Like an international school trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, tell me more.
Those were 2 civilization games trips, just like what you mentioned with Ollie before.
Yeah. Dear listener, if you didn't catch the second episode on the power of narratives in outdoor programming, there's an episode with Ollie from Imagine Taiwan where we dive into what the civilization game is as well. So if you're wondering what civilization game means in the context of Imagine, then you can find out there.
Yeah.
So set the scene a little bit. So where are we? We're in a forest, right? It's a sort of forest park in northern China.
Yes, it's in the northern China, pretty close to Beijing. And we set the whole group into a forest, and it's an overnight trip. The teachers and students spend the evening in the cabin next to the river. So it's a really nice scene for outdoor education programs.
So we're dealing with transport, accommodation, equipment, instructors, food, and all the logistical elements that go with that. And
yes, everything.
Yeah. So how did it go? Did it all go smoothly? So this is where usually the answer from Sawyer is, yep, it all went smoothly. It was all fine.
It all went smoothly.
And I love that. I think everyone listening to this, if you've ever been in a sort of management position where there's big trips involving young people and lots of outdoor stuff, it's always good to hear that it all went fine. But if we just shut off when we hear that and we go, okay, that was great, now let's do the next one, we'll never learn. So I think today's a great opportunity to learn a bit more about why it was all fine. It's always good to learn from what one does wrong as well. But in this case, let's just try to get a little bit more insight into how this was achieved and what sort of tips and tricks Sawyer might be able to offer. Obviously, everyone listening to this show might be from different countries, different types of climates. It's not all about forest and China, but hopefully a lot of the things that we talk about today will apply to many different contexts. So Sawyer, talk us through the process. So let's say we receive a booking from a school and the project has started. So what's your first step and how do you start fitting everything together and arranging things? Just walk us through that process.
If we're talking about already received booking from school, then I'm assuming that we've already confirmed that the activity framework, schedule, pricing, and signed the contract with the school already.
Yep.
Okay. Then my first step usually is to create a detailed plan. I organize a kickoff meeting with my team to list all pending tasks based on prior project experience, allocate resources, define clear objectives, and set deadlines. This step is critical because it established a structured workflow, and from there, the entire project revolves around tracking progress, validating outcomes, and dynamically updating priorities or adding and removing tasks as needed. So this is all systematically managed until completion.
Wow. That's a really systematic approach to the whole thing. That's really interesting. And I think this is where we start to realize the importance of having someone on the team who has this kind of brain, because I think this is where a lot of outdoor companies go wrong. We start off with people who are instructors and then they work their way up into management. And that's fine because then they have the passion of the sports. But generally, they've gone into the career path because they were originally people who spend as much time as they can outside, and they're not necessarily the same kind of people who are able to think really systematically about stuff. But one thing I've realized over the years, especially from working with Sawyer, is that actually when it comes to doing these kind of big trips, which is when business really gets interesting, you need people to be thinking like this, because at the end of the day, it is a big operation with many moving parts, many different flows and systems and data and all kinds of things like that. And I remember when Sawyer first joined the team, we were interviewing like various people, and there was instructors applying, but they didn't have many computer skills. There was all kinds of characters. And Sawyer had an engineering background. Is that correct? Do I remember that correctly, that your degree was in engineering?
Yeah, that's correct. My degree was in software engineering.
Yeah. So I remember when I first saw the CV, I almost thought, no, that's probably not the kind of person we need on an adventure team, because I was still thinking quite small scale. This was the early days. And my colleague suggested, no, I think we should try. Let's just see. And we're so lucky that we did go ahead with Sawyer, because it has proven to be the key kind of asset, I think, when it comes to organizing these things, and something that your average instructor is not typically so naturally skillful at, if that's fair to say.
Lucky for me as well.
Yeah. So obviously Sawyer has actually got a lot of different outdoor experience, especially now over the years, and he has always been an outdoorsy person as well, but that didn't come out so early on. In the beginning, it wasn't so clear. It was more like, okay, software engineer graduates, is that the right person for an adventure company? But my message basically to anyone who's thinking of building up a team and choosing who to work with, you might really consider actually trying to find someone with this kind of engineering type mind, or someone at least with some element of this kind of logical processing. It really does become such an important part of large scale operations.
As long as they are outdoorsy people, right?
Yeah, to some extent. I think the passion is important, right? You do need to have the passion to stick with it and to be interested in what the final product is, right? And so
Agreed.
there's that side of it. And also for the safety side, I think having enough of a knowledge of the safety to be able to combine that logical thinking with the safety thinking, or at least to know how to access the information that's needed, the expert opinions from relevant instructors or from relevant people. So yeah, obviously having nothing to do with the outdoors is never going to be a good idea. But yeah, just an interesting thought there to sometimes consider the logical side of the talent set that different people have. Okay, so there was a lot in there, and let's break it down a little bit. So we start with the technological aspect. I know you're a big fan of the spreadsheet, I think.
Yeah.
And I used to somehow find that almost funny, but now I know it's just so necessary and so important, because I'm not really a spreadsheet person, and I think many outdoorsy people are not, but it's just been such a powerful tool, right? So do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you approach the use of technology itself?
Well, my engineering background introduced me to foundational project management principles, and I found many of these adaptable to outdoor operations. So, regarding tools, I believe simplicity and clarity matter more than complexity. So beyond mind mapping tools, I will also use spreadsheets and collaborative platforms for file management. So apart from these, I don't use specialized software. Mind mapping helps visualize abstract ideas, while spreadsheets break down into details, and cloud platforms just streamline the teamwork. So ultimately, it's less about the specific tools, but more about applying systematic thinking and experience to use them effectively.
So simplicity and using the tools effectively rather than worrying about exactly which tools they are.
That's the
And
idea.
sometimes I've seen you using a computer and it's like watching a video in fast forward, like just all these screens popping up and closing and formulas getting entered, and it's 4 times faster than your average person. So how do you do that? How do you reach that level of efficiency?
Oh, thank you for that. It's like any outdoor skill. Proficiency comes with constant practice, right? So high frequency use of these tools has ingrained their workflows into my muscle memory. Yes, shortcuts are vital. And for every software I use, I prioritize learning shortcuts early on.
Yeah.
I think saving time on mechanical tasks allows me to redirect that mental bandwidth to strategy thinking.
Yeah.
And efficiency isn't just about speed, it's actually more about freeing up cognitive space for problem solving.
Interesting.
That's the end goal.
So by optimizing with the keyboard shortcuts and everything, then you don't break the flow and you can keep all that bandwidth available.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you think much about habit forming? Is that something that goes through your mind?
Sure. Like carrying my laptop everywhere is non-negotiable for me. Managing project changes requires agility, as even minor adjustments can ripple through a project. So in outdoor setting with high unpredictability, being ready to adapt plans on the fly means my laptop is my constant companion. And it's less about rigid habits, but more about creating systems that let me respond dynamically, whether I'm at a desk or in the forest. If all the documents are well structured on the cloud, you can still access it with your phone and make edits to it. And I think that's still better than nothing while you're, say, skiing or river rafting or something, right?
Yeah. So bringing it back to the outdoors, what can make things more efficient on the trip itself or during the training or the recce's? Can you think of any examples?
Yeah, while project management covers many elements, execution ultimately hinges on managing people. So clear communication tools are paramount. All team members carry walkie-talkies assigned to role-specific channels with clear usage protocols. And we hold evening debriefs and morning briefings to highlight daily priorities. And behind the scenes, our logistic teams operate on hyper-detailed minute-by-minute schedules for every member. And that's built from the master timeline. And these might seem excessive, but it ensures seamless execution and built-in flexibility to absorb unexpected changes. And because outdoor operations demands definitely more on risk management and risk identification, prevention, and mitigation, those are woven into every planning and execution phase, not as an afterthought, but as the backbone of our workflow.
So when you said minute by minute scheduling, and that's true, I've seen these files are really detailed and really impressive, like the way everything all connects, and there's such a detailed schedule for every team member and every activity and everything. How does that fit with the thing you mentioned of being flexible? Isn't that a contradiction? That if something is planned out minute by minute, doesn't that make it less flexible?
But the way that I see it is actually just add on the flexibilities, because when there's a change comes and then you need to make decision on how to change, then actually with the whole schedule in your hands, with all the details, what is going to affect to, right? So for example, you're making a decision on changing one thing, but then you know what comes to next will have to be changed as well. Only if you have the schedule, you have the plan for everything. So actually that opens up much more time for you to think about what would be the best option instead of just saying, okay, let's make a change and flow with it. And actually that probably will consume you a lot of time when you're on a project trying to make decisions. Does that make sense?
So if, let's say, there's been a lot of rain and the river is higher than usual, we can't cross the river to go to where we were planning to go to. And then that element on the itinerary gets changed. Does that change the other elements on the itinerary? Do you then go back to the master sheet or to the minute by minute itinerary and then edit the other items on the itinerary?
Sure, yes, just keep it updated, because that's how you deal with changes when you're handling a project, right? So there's a change come in, you evaluate it, you make the changes on all your plans at the same time. And then also you are aware of what kind of impact that it's going to do to the other items. So actually it allows you to take the changes instead of just, this is something that we haven't thought about, so we probably should just refuse to change. And that's bad because sometimes you have to make some changes to your plan or schedule due to, say, customer demands or like the case that you mentioned, weather or whatever. But then with the plans, everything in place, then you actually can look at it, review it with the teams, making decisions, making changes, and make sure that even if the changes are made, we're still having the similar successful outcome instead of just lead us to somewhere that we possibly would just say, oh, we don't know what's going to happen next. So we are so worried about making the change and not making change at all.
So also having those backup plan ideas in advance are also important.
Yes, of course.
Do you have some examples of a backup plan that has worked pretty well in the past? We needed to use it?
Yeah, for example, while there is a proposal that we are presenting to the customers, we always have an alternative plan for wet days, right? And that is in our proposals all the time, showing what we are going to do if the weather goes bad. So yeah, that is just in the side of the proposal to the customers, but also we will have our own risk assessment for every activities, and we listed out all the potential risks. And then we will have plans accordingly. We will have the activity plan. We will do something different from what we are going to plan in the original master schedule. And then we'll adapt to it. And then we did. Because we are working outdoors, so I ran into a situation like having heavy rain or even thunder. That was actually something that we encounter all the time. And then we just follow the plans. And
having that plan in place in advance really helps. And then it's just so easy to switch to that when needed without having to make decisions too much on the fly, unless, of course, it is the outdoors. So obviously there's always things that are not black and white or not exactly as expected. And then having that dynamic thinking ability, replanning, being flexible, being creative in the moment is also important. I think it's that balance, isn't it? It's quite demanding, I think, on people in general. You've got to have that really systematic, logical approach to the pre-planning. And then you've also got to be like super dynamic and flexible in the moment. And I think that's true of all kinds of outdoor activities, not just large scale commercial operations, but also for us all as adventure people going out there. When you're up the mountain, similar principles apply, don't they?
Yep.
Okay, how about people? Obviously, people are a huge main part of everything that we do. So how do you approach putting together a team? What do you look for in a team? How do you make the most efficient use of the team? On a large trip of 100 plus students, would you have like layers of authority in place, like sub-leaders? Or just talk us through how you approach that whole side of things.
Great question. I firmly believe that the quality of the team determines the ceiling of a project success. So given the unique demands of outdoor programs, I prioritize team members with strong communication skills, adaptability, teamwork, safety awareness, and hands-on experience, of course. Roles are defined not as hierarchical positions, but as functions serving specific objectives. The instructor team acts as the core, directly serving participants, while the logistic team supports the instructors. And I, as a trip leader or program manager, in turn, support those both. So I focus less on rigid management and more on fostering a results-driven support system to achieve the desired outcomes. So, for example, for large groups, more than 100 students, we usually would deploy 20 to 30 staff members, and that is excluding third-party partners. And to balance efficiency and clear communication, we adopt fairly flat structure. Instructors report directly to the trip leader, while logistics plans are collaboratively designed and reviewed by the trip leader and the logistic team prior to the trip. So during the execution, the logistic manager oversees details and reports outcome to the trip leader.
So the logistics team are reporting to the trip leader. Are the instructors also reporting to the trip leader, or are they just getting on with what they're doing?
They are reporting to the trip leader. So by saying reporting to, it's basically saying that if there's any questions or if there's anything needs to let the instructors know, communication would be done between the trip leader and the instructors.
So if it's about the activities, it's from the instructors to the trip leader. If it's about logistics, it's from logistics to the trip leader. So it's not so much like a traditional hierarchy type pyramid.
Keep it flat, keep it agile.
to keep it agile and I guess more efficient, like the communication can just flow so much faster.
Yep.
And you, as the trip leader or whoever is the trip leader, do you try to make sure that trip leader is just a trip leader and they're not going to be busy doing something else, like instructing at the same time, so that they can stay in the helicopter and keep tabs on what's going on everywhere? Is that how you would approach that?
Oh, definitely, yes. If we are assigning a trip leader to a trip, then the trip leader will do exactly what I mentioned before. And I think it's very crucial because that would be the only way that we can keep the trip leader with a clear mind to make decisions on things that they probably have to make.
They got to be available. They got to be ready
They got to
to.
be available.
Yeah.
Yes. And for a lot of time, the trip leader is also a part of the redundancy design as well. So there will be things, for example, if there's an instructor having some issues and need to walk away from the groups for a while, or there's something going on with the logistics team, or there's anything that needs to communicate with the third party or with the teachers, then trip leader is the redundancy to
Yeah.
make sure that these cases can be perfectly taken care of.
Yeah. I remember when I first started Imagine and everything was on a small scale and I was just teaching things that I knew about or loved or things that I wanted to teach people about. So I had maybe one or two other instructors helping me, but of course I was still the main lead instructor while also trying to be the trip leader. And it worked when it was, let's say you've got 12 participants or something. Depending on the activity, that can work. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs starting adventure companies from scratch, maybe they start with a small operation, and that approach can work. And it's almost the only way that you can do it, especially considering the financial side of it. You can't really afford to have a trip leader as well as all the other instructors. But then as Imagine grew and the group sizes went from like 12 to 60 to 120, I think, what did we have, 160 last year?
Yeah, we have, the most we have it will be around 170 to 180, and sometimes it could be both trips happening at the same time.
Yeah, so that's when it really changes from being the whole nature of the operation changes. Now it's no longer about you as an entrepreneur or as an instructor just teaching the things that they like to teach. It's really more of a almost like, I don't want to say a military operation, but it has that kind of feeling to it in a way, as in like just the importance of having that kind of leader who is just the leader, who is able to make those decisions. And they really need to be kept back as just having that one role. I really have found that becomes more and more important as the group sizes grow. And it can be quite hard for a sort of passionate instructor entrepreneur to switch from being out there hands-on doing the instructing to putting themselves into that role of not doing the activity. And the skill set then is completely different, isn't it? Because now the skill set that's needed is really, what do you think? Leadership, organization, what other key talents or skills do you think is important for that role?
I think, like I said, everything is built around the instructors, right? In terms of building a team. So being an instructor before is definitely a big add-on, while someone is working as a trip leader, as they definitely know what the instructors need. So we can provide support to the instructors as good as possible.
Good point.
On the other hand, I think the big missing link is the awareness or the knowledge about the other part of the program, which is the logistic management, right? So someone, while they are transiting from a instructor to a trip leader, the most thing that they need to think about probably on the logistic side of it.
Yeah.
And also, if we are trying to say managing a project, then we have to understand that stakeholders, including not only the instructors or the students, but also the teachers, the school, and whoever in the company that the trip leader should answer to. Right? So managing their expectations and managing their communication or conflicts or whatever are also something that you will never touch when you're just working as an instructor.
Yeah, true. So you mean like managing people, right?
Yep.
So when you really think about it like that, the role of a trip leader is so different to the role of an instructor. I'm really interested in how this works in the story of most businesses in the outdoor industry, the way they go from usually starting as a small instructor-based operation, and then they develop into this large-scale thing. And then they go, oh, no, actually, hang on a minute. We got to completely rethink this because, you know, the guy who was teaching the rafting or the mountain hiking before is now the leader because they're the one who's been there the longest. But actually, the skill set they need is completely different. And maybe for companies, once they are at this stage of having two groups of 180 simultaneously, would you say that's when it sometimes is good to think about actually hiring specifically for the role of a trip leader, based more on things like leadership, people management, being really organized, thinking systematically, and then let them have a go at the activities as part of the training, rather than the other way around of starting off with the instructors doing lots of the activities and then just expecting them to be talented at all that other stuff? Do you think there's a case for putting together teams with that approach?
That definitely depends. Like we mentioned before, there are something essential in the instructor's mindset that is a big add-on while someone is working as a trip leader, right?
Yeah.
For example, they need to understand how the program goes, and they need to understand why exactly these programs are chosen by the school and what kind of outcome the participants can have from the program. What are the best outcomes? And it only fits if the trip leader has seen all this, and the best way to see that would be working as an instructor in the team. So in that case, if we find someone in the instructor team and help them to transit to a trip leader, then they will know how to managing everything around the program, including logistics, including managing the expectations for the stakeholders, to eventually achieve the goal, which is providing the best experience for the participants.
Yeah, really good point. And we take a little break now for some adventure industry news. The 13th Outdoor Leadership Conference will be held by the Japan branch of the Wilderness Education Association in Hokkaido on June the 17th to 19th, 2025. And I will be there, so let me know if you're going. On the topic of Japan, there's also the upcoming Tokyo Outdoor Show, a huge exhibition on 27th to 29th of June. In Thailand, the Outdoor Expo Outdoor Fest 2025 was held in Bangkok in late May, showcasing a range of providers from Thailand's outdoor industry. And in the US, the Association of Experiential Education's 2025 Northeast Regional Conference was held in Vermont in late April, with over 175 practitioners and educators gathering together. A paraglider in China was testing the fit of his equipment on the ground when a rare type of wind propelled him first up into the air and then higher and higher until he reached an altitude of 8,500 meters. That's not far off the height of Everest. With the lack of oxygen, freezing temperatures, and a complete whiteout, miraculously he survived, and there's a great video of it online. Over in the New York mountains, two hikers called emergency services to report that they were lost, and that their friend, a third hiker, had died. In the end, it turned out that their friend was not dead or even injured, and the pair were just hallucinating on magic mushrooms. Instead of completing the journey, they were taken to the police station, while their supposedly dead friend carried on with their camping. Definitely sounds like it was a bad trip. Can you tell us any stories of just anything that you think might be interesting for the group to hear? Maybe a story?
没有。
没有是吧？应该会有吧？你想，我们这么多年做这么多活动，应该会有一些非常有效的故事。
当然，有意思的事情非常的多，可是适合在这里分享的可能就没有那么好笑了，对吧？
我明白了，那就是。
I can save you the trouble. I have no funny story to tell. I try to work for it, but really, it's either there are a lot of fun stories, but shit, it's just not for sharing, you know? But if there's anything that it's okay to share in these kind of circumstances, that it's not going to be funny at all. Not that funny, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is the problem with our industry, isn't it? Anything that's actually funny, usually you can't share it with the
No. I can share you some funny story that we mentioned recently, but not for the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 或者就去喝酒说也可以。
对。
好，那我们就继续吧。
Okay,
so one thing I sometimes think about in terms of efficiency for organizing trips is just the importance of repeating similar trip types, right? I'm sure anyone who's listening would probably agree with this. If you ever tried to organize a completely new trip, it takes 10 times as much organization as just repeating the same type of trip again. And that's because you can reuse all the documents, the templates, all the staff know what they're doing because they've done it before. It's like a well-oiled machine. You're familiar with the location, you're familiar with all the elements of the activities. Firstly, would you agree with that? Do you find the same thing? Does that make a big difference to the efficiency?
Sure, of course. Totally agree on that.
But then the other thing that I find with that is that it's a great adventure for the participants because it's the first time they've been there. But for the organizers, this is like a paradox, I think, across our whole industry. The better we are at something or the more familiar we are with a place, the less of an adventure it is for the organizers, right? So I'm sure we've all found this, that when we've been in a certain place, organizing a certain activity in the same place for many years, it's a shame to say, but it starts to lose its kind of adventure appeal, right, for the organizers. And so while the work might be all going well, the experience for the customer is all going well, it's actually quite hard to keep that kind of spark alive just in terms of the pure fun of the actual activity. I'm just thinking one example might be rafting, right? If you're a rafting guide, let's say, and the first 20 times that you go down the river on that raft with the smiling, laughing customers, you're like, oh, this is the best job in the world. I love this. This is just so fun. And then maybe by the 50th time, you're like, it's still better than your average office job, but I know every single little turn on this river. The more efficient and effective an activity is, the less adventurous it is for the providers.
I get what you're saying. While adventure is central to outdoor education, it doesn't mean our team needs unpredictable experiences during the execution, right?
Yeah, ideally
So
not.
clarity of the purpose is the key here. So we channel the adventurous spirit into developing new programs or recce on the upcoming programs, and which energizes our team and fuels creativities. And during execution, however, we prioritize delivering risk-controlled, adventurous experiences for participants. So these kind of balance allows our team to stay passionate as they enjoy the challenge of innovation in outdoor while still building clients' trust through reliability. Right?
Yeah, really good point. Really important to have that balance. We want to have just the right balance of the well-oiled machine type activities while still giving the team the opportunity to be innovative and go out on adventures to create the new activities.
Yeah.
Very useful stuff to think about.
Yeah, we can still have both, just in different time frame.
Yeah. Okay, so anything else that you think we've missed?
If I had to leave one takeaway here, probably should be this: embrace the journey, not just the checklist. You'll be surprised that I say that, right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, we've seen students conquer fears, teachers rediscover their sense of playing, and even seasoned instructors, sometimes they stumble into an unexpected aha time, right? So the magic happens when everyone, including the participants, staff, leaders, they walk away a little transformed. So sure, logistic matters, spreadsheets save lives, and risk plans keep us safe, but never let the mechanics overshadow the heart of it.
Awesome. Powerful stuff. And that just goes to illustrate the amazing balance that I think has been the key to your success over the years, because keeping that side of things in mind, as well as having that kind of systems-based logical approach from the engineering background, is just such an awesome combination.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Sawyer. And
thank you, Pete.
I hear from you almost every day, so I won't say, oh, it's great to hear from you again, because we'll probably have a chat in about 24 hours about another big group and all the logistics and checklists and stuff. But
yeah, already looking forward to it.
I know. But great to be able to take a step back and chat about some of these concepts in more of a discussion-based manner. And thank you, dear listener, for tuning in once again. I hope you gained some useful insights from this and enjoy being as passionate as you are organized, or as organized as you are passionate. And we'll see you again next week. Bye.
See you.
Email amp@petetupper.com. That's amp@petetupper.com.